Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Stout from Cloverleaf Animal Hospital, and we're in Lodi, Ohio, and I'm here today to talk to you about microchipping your cat. And my assistant will be asking some questions, so hopefully by the end of this little video, you'll understand why microchipping is important and consider having that done for your cat as well.
All right, so Dr. Stout, what does it mean to microchip your cat?
So microchipping involves in placing a small chip, actual microchip, about the size of a rice grain underneath the skin in your cat as a permanent identification.
And why do veterinarians recommend cat microchipping?
So we as veterinarians recommend the microchipping mainly because, again, it is a way of a permanent identification in your cat, and that number on the microchip is specific to just your cat. So it is a way, if they did lose their collar or lost their tags on their collar, that they would still be able to be traced and find their owner.
Okay, is microchipping dangerous or painful for my cat?
Actually, it is not. We often chuckle because clients will look and see the size of the needle that is used, because the needle does have to be a little bit larger to get the microchip through, but actually it is given just like a vaccine. And so no anesthetic is involved. The cats do wonderful for it. It's used, again, just a larger bore of a needle, but they don't usually react to it. There's no real problems with that microchip going underneath the skin. And again, if they do well for vaccines, they do wonderful for the microchipping.
Okay. And how is microchipping used to identify my cat?
So microchipping, again, there's a number that's specifically assigned to the chip. So there's never two numbers that are identical. And those microchips that we use are basically what we call a universal chip, meaning that there's different scanners available on the market. And this was a problem when the microchips actually first came out, is that there were only certain chips that the certain scanners would read, so that if you didn't have that scanner, then you might not have been able to read the chip. So now through technology and advancements in microchipping, there is actually universal scanners and universal chips being used, so that that scanner can pick up any of the multiple chips that have been implanted in the cat.
And why does my cat need a microchip if they already have a collar with a tag?
So collar and tags are absolutely wonderful as far as identification. Unfortunately, if your cat happened to get out and has been out and about, sometimes the tags will fall off, or if there's a breakaway collar, or the collar gets destroyed, or there's ways, unfortunately, that the animals are found and they don't have a collar or they don't have tags. And it doesn't mean they didn't start with them, it just means that maybe they lost them while they were out. So the microchip actually is, again, since it's implanted and a permanent identification, we don't ever have to worry about that chip not being there.
Will my cat's microchip be able to tell my cat's location?
So unfortunately, your microchip is not like a GPS system. So it does not work to locate. It just is again, number specific that's on the chip that the scanner, if your cat was brought into a shelter or was brought in by someone who said, hey, I found this cat roaming around my house, I want to see if it belongs to somebody, and they bring it to us, we use the scanner to read the chip, and then we're able to trace that number back to the owner.
Who can scan my cat's microchip information?
So most shelters and rescue groups will have some type of a scanner that's available to them to scan. Most veterinarian clinics will have a microchip scanner as well. You can purchase them yourself online. There's really no reason, unless you are, doing a rescue group or something like that out of your home, and you're chipping your cats before they're being adopted out. You can, a veterinarian doesn't have to do the chipping, but we highly recommend that, you go through someone that does know how to do the chipping and how to register them properly.
Okay. And then when will a microchip be scanned?
So we always, here at Cloverleaf, will scan any animal that comes in that is portrayed as a stray, or if somebody says, hey, found this cat over, I was driving down the road and I just saw it, I don't know if it belongs to anybody. So any animal that unfortunately looks like, might be a stray or might have lost their way, we scan. If we don't have any history on a patient that's coming in, we will scan as well. We do have sometimes puppies or kittens that come in that may have had a microchip, but the owner's not sure if the breeder, did it or not, or, what the number is. So we typically will scan all animals, especially if the owner says, hey, can you look for a chip? It's painless. You just put the scanner up between their shoulder blades and, hope that you will find a number.
Okay. And what if I forget or lose my cat's microchip information?
So typically when your cat is microchipped, you will be given information to actually register that information online. So there, again, depending on what chip is being used, there is a national registry that stores that information. So it's very important as an owner to do that initial setup. A lot of places will go ahead and just register the initial information for you. There are some fees usually associated. It could be a one-time registration fee. It could be a yearly fee to keep your information into that system. So again, it depends on what chip is being used. But again, for a small fee, it is definitely worth making sure that that information is kept. And the other important thing is that if you happen to move or your emergency contact person information has changed, or your phone numbers have changed, you need to remember to update that information on the website. A lot of the registries have a website you can go directly to where you don't have to actually talk to anybody, but you can go and update it yourself. Because if there's old information in there, we may be able to say, hey, this number belongs to Kitty Smith, but Mrs. Smith no longer lives here, or this number is no longer available. So then we don't have any way of contacting, Mrs. Smith to reunite Kitty with her.
And last question, what is the difference between a GPS and an RFID device?
So your RFID device is a radio frequency ID, which is what the microchip is. So the microchip basically lets off radio frequency from the chip into the transducer, which is your scanner. And that's the way that transmits that signal in order for that information to come up on our scanner or the reader. A GPS is your global positioning system or satellite, and that relies on satellites up truly satellites everywhere. So, and that is your radio frequencies bouncing off the satellites to allow you to determine location. So your microchip does not have that capability.
And last question, yes. If there are questions regarding cat microchipping, what should a client do?
So we do offer microchipping here at Cloverleaf. So if you are interested in having that done, we'd be more than happy to have you call us, and we can talk to you further about that and get your cat in so that we could get that done.